everybody, and welcome to the Friday Night Drive Western Suburbs podcast. I'm Josh Welge here with Joel Boenitz. We are recording here on Tuesday afternoon. Joel, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Kind of a wild week of high school football in a different sense than usual, considering the news that we got in terms of, seedings and all that, and classifications of public schools. But, for the most part, pretty solid stuff.
Yeah, a lot of activity there. You want to check out Steve Susi's latest playoff projections that'll be dropping on Friday Night Drive on Wednesday. I know Susie and I talked about it on the podcast that we record, where there's upwards of 400 schools. Their enrollment numbers were adjusted in this last week, which create a lot of turmoil in which schools are in what class for the playoffs and playoff projections. So definitely check out Seuss's playoff projections. So I'll have a lot more about that on that. So again, thanks everyone for joining us. Joel, we're kind of getting to the season stretch run. You and I are covering conference golf the next 2 days. So that's kind of adjusting our schedule. So, it's still pretty warm out, but we are definitely heading in the second half of the season. We'll talk a little bit about week 4 and then dive into week 5. Want to start out with a couple of really dramatic finishes last week in the Chicago Catholic League. Montini, Fenwick, and Nazareth IC Catholic. Montini, they had something like an 18-point lead against Fenwick. Good game for Izzy Abrams, their quarterback. Fenwick comes back behind their quarterback, John Williams. I believe they drew within 2. They had a 2-point conversion for the tie to force overtime, pass incomplete in the end zone. I think the kid had the ball for a second, then came out. But Montini holds on. Montini remains undefeated. So a great win for them. And then up there in IC Catholic Prep, Nazareth, back and forth game was IC Catholic. I know IC led early. Naz took the lead. IC tied it. And then Nazareth's Billy Harding, a sophomore, kicked a 39-yard field goal as time expired. So, wow, what a moment for that kid, but what a great 2 wins for Nazareth and Montini last Friday.
Yeah, a couple of dramatic finishes between 4 really good teams at this point in the season. Obviously, we were hyping up that both of those matchups last week in the podcast. Obviously, Fenwick and Montini, both of them coming off some pretty big wins the week before. Montini getting the stop on that 2-point conversion, I think it just solidifies how good that Montini program has been since, they lost to Fenwick last year. Now they've gone a whole year without losing a game. So it's been really good, or it's been really cool to see how they've progressed and, to see them going up against, some of these, upper echelon CCL teams like Fenwick and coming out on top. I think it's a big confidence booster. Then on the other side for that Nazareth IC Catholic game, Billy Harding, what a moment for you. A left-footed kicker on top of that for the sophomore. 39 yards for the win. That's a big win for Nazareth, especially considering, what they have in the future. But I think more than anything, that's a big confidence booster for IC Catholic. Because went from last year where you were 4-5, just missing out on the playoffs for the first time in a while, and you're able to keep up with, of course, a reigning state champion in Nazareth all the way to the final buzzer. That's got to be a big thing for that, or that's got to be a big confidence booster for them. And that's got to be something that's really scary for all the other schools in Class 3A, just being like, oh, great, it's Montini all over again.
No doubt about that. If IC Catholic can somehow get to 5 wins or, hopefully for them more than that, then they're going to be really dangerous in that 3A bracket, which they've proven to be for, most of the last decade, until last year, kind of an outlier situation. But Montini improves to 4-0 with big win, and Nazareth continues to win as well. Joel, a couple games that we saw last Friday involving teams that are now 4-0. You were at Canelan last Friday, seeing them play Ottawa, and they looked apart, improving to 4-0. Jalen Carter, quarterback, had a really good night. I know you wrote about him this week in your Kane County Chronicle notebook. What do you see out of the Knights?
I just think, heading into this, I was really excited to see, kind of how speedy uh, the Knights were, because that's something that, just reading up about them before, for the past 3 weeks, that's something that I noticed that, seemed like they could run off those big plays and stuff like that. And, after the first drive, it went 11 plays with Jalen Carter getting the 2-yard rushing touchdown. I was like, this might be a slow game. But then after that, it only took 8 plays for them to score the next 4 touchdowns. Jalen Carter, I mean, you don't really see a journeyman in high school football. This is their team in 3 years. But he was slinging the ball all over the place once he got comfortable. And it was so cool to see. And, it kind of had a different feel for this Canelan team. It's like they have a lot of weapons and they're fully utilizing them. And, I think that's something that, is a little bit different from last year. And so they could be a team to watch, especially as they go up against some of these tougher, Interstate 8 teams that are usually at the top of the league in Morris and Sycamore over the next 2 weeks. And then, of course, Rochelle after them.
Yeah, they've traditionally been a program that can throw the ball. I mean, they had Troyer Carlson most recently, 4-year varsity star. They've had some great receiving threats as well over the years. But now it seems like, they got Jalen Carter who can throw the ball. They have Carter Grabowski running the football. They have a defense that's, 1 year older and 1 year more experience. A lot of good things going on for the Knights. So that was a good win for them last week. Another team that I got to see remain undefeated, Yorkville, Plainfield East. Teams came in 3-0, 3-0. But Yorkville, pretty much dominated this game from the start. They forced 2 3-and-outs on Plainfield East's first 2 drives, and then they scored right away. Yorkville, they have a young man who's a sophomore, Jaden Ruth. He's a kind of a track star as well. He took a screen pass for his first varsity catch for a 50-yard touchdown, and kind of bobbled the ball, but then I wrote in my story, he's off to the races and just brings a real speed element to that Yorkville team. He also plays defensive back. He's played more defense and offense up to this point, but I think he's kind of a kid to watch to kind of see how they utilize him during the second half of the season, because they got a pretty good senior quarterback, Jack Beetham. They got a couple running backs that are good. They have some experienced receivers. Their defense just keeps them in the game every night out. I mean, I think the most they've given up in a game is 13 points so far, and they're off to a great start. They have a big game this coming Friday, which we'll talk about later. So a very impressive win for Yorkville, improving to 4-0. Another game that we were kind of keeping our eye on last Friday in the Fox 5 Conference, Burlington Central. They came up short against Prairie Ridge, but I think I was reading in your notebook. I mean, Coach Yossi's still pretty optimistic about the Rockets, even after the loss.
Yeah, and I think he has a good reason to be optimistic as well. I mean, obviously, the big thing about that was, their offense isn't as potent as it was last year when they made it to the second round of the playoffs. I mean, they had Jackson Arnold, who was, a very good quarterback for them. But the big story for them is their defense, and that's been, their big shining light in this entire thing. And I mean, even though they gave up 4 touchdowns to a very talented Prairie Ridge team, there's still a lot of good takeaways from this team. And I mean, looking at the rest of their schedule, it's looking pretty good for Burlington Central to potentially go 8-1, or maybe even 7-2. We'll see, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they bounce back from a loss like this with the rest of Fox Valley play.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So there's some good games on Saturday as well. In the West Suburban Silver specifically, a team that you saw early in the year, week 1 against Batavia, Glenbard West, and I mean what a great start to the year. And I think on this podcast last week, I kind of said that Saturday was sort of opportunity to kind of plant the flag in the West Suburban Silver to really establish that their back is, one of the beasts, if not the king of the hill in that conference. And man, did they. I mean, they they beat Downers Grove North. I think the final was 35-21, but really not indicative of the kind of game it was. I think it was 35-0. It might have been 28-0 in the second quarter. Huge game for their junior quarterback, AJ Rayford, coming back from a hip injury after missing a couple weeks. He had a big game. I know Jamarcus Kelly had a couple touchdowns, but man, it just seems like, and you've seen them. I mean, it seems like obviously their defense is really good, but they seem to have a lot of speed on offense and a lot of different guys they can utilize. So that was a really good win for them, and they've had a lot of good wins already.
Yeah, I mean, you think about that week 1 victory that I was at against Batavia. You think that was a statement victory, and then they follow that up, of course, with Joliet Catholic, and then of course they have now Downers Grove North under their belt as well. I mean, this is an extremely good start to the to Glenbard West season. I mean, you talk about it. Obviously, this is first game back for AJ Rayford. I saw him go down and didn't really know how the extent of his injury, but to see him come back and see that offense in full force and put up 35 points against Downers Grove North, I mean that's a big thing. And if I am a team in the West Suburban Silver that has not played them yet, I would be scared of Glenbard West. I mean, if with their offense, in full force now, that's a team that's going to be really scary for that. And then going into the playoffs, I mean, they're just going to keep building more and more confidence as each game goes along. And Glenbard West might be back.
Yeah. No, it seemed like last year when Tia and Oriental went down the injury, they just really were lacking weapons offensively, and they really struggled to do anything much offensively. Same thing a couple of years ago when Julius Ellians got hurt, whereas this year, I mean, they have a few running backs at their disposal with Jamarcus Kelly, with Bryce Owens. And then, AJ Rayford kind of adds a dimension to them offensively. They don't always have those really good, kind of dual threat type quarterbacks like him. So he really adds a lot. So great start for them. And then speaking of kind of statement wins, I mean, the Hinsdale Central, they almost did it week 3 against Downers Grove North, losing in the last minute. But they did. They came from behind. They beat Lions. Big win for them. Riley Contreras had a big game for them, and they get a really nice come from behind win. Snapping, I think Lions had a 13-game regular season winning streak. So that's a really good win for them, establishing them as, I mean, it's kind of like pecking order in that conference. I mean, York is really good. Lions is really good. Downers North, even though Owen Lansu is still going to be out for a while with the injury. I mean, they're obviously one of the better teams. Glenbard West, obviously they're proven. And I think Hinsdale Central is right in that mix now after what they've done the last couple of weeks.
For sure. And I mean, the way they won as well was also a really big way to do it. I mean, obviously, Nico Mann's interception on, in the red zone. And then, of course, following that up with a 90-yard touchdown run from Dominic Tressler to win it, or for the go-ahead score. I mean, that's a really big win for them, especially after how, demoralizing that loss against Downers Grove North could have been. And, you kind of talk about it, that pecking order. It's going to be really interesting to see how that lays out when all is said and done. Because, I mean, obviously, past 4 weeks, we've really been talking about 4 teams. We've been talking about Downers Grove North. We've been talking about Glenbard West. We've been talking about Hinsdale Central. We've been talking about Lions. We barely touched on York, and we're going to be seeing them after this week so many times because they've got to face all 4 of those teams. Yeah. So I think those next 4 weeks are really going to determine how those 5 teams are going to shake out in those standings. And I'm really interested to see what those final standings are in 4 weeks, or I guess 5 weeks time.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It's going to be a lot of fun the last 5 weeks in that West Suburban Silver, as it will be in the Duquesne Conference, which we will talk about as we preview week 5. But first, Joel, let's take a break and hear from our sponsors.
I'm State Representative Steve Reich. Since 2017, I've led the fight to reform our child welfare system and supported educational choice for every kid in Illinois. I've worked to stop the collapse of our public pensions while standing up for businesses that are being crushed by crippling mandates. And I've never forgotten who pays the bill. The work isn't finished, and as I run for re-election, I'm asking for your support. I'm Steve Reich, and I approve this message.
SGKR Injury Attorneys tackles the toughest cases. I'm Matt Rundio. When life throws a flag, we go on offense to protect your rights. Don't get sidelined. Score a touchdown with SGKR. Visit us at sgkr.law.
At Oliver's, we are proud to serve our community. We serve up great customer service, quality products, ease of shopping, and we serve up delicious barbecued sandwiches at our fundraiser cookouts. So stop by Oliver's, 748 North Brenton and Dixon, and help fund our local clubs and events.
In Illinois and into Iowa, the story of Shaw Media is a story of trust. Since 1851, we've been informing, connecting, and reflecting the communities we serve, large and small, rural and urban, suburban, and river towns alike. With dozens of local newspapers, radio stations, magazines, and specialty brands like Friday Night Drive and Starve Rock Country, we meet people wherever they are. We shine a light on local government. We celebrate Friday night touchdowns. We tell the stories that shape your day, from neighborhood heroes to the Chicago Bears. But what truly sets us apart? It's our people. The award-winning journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers who live here, work here, and care deeply about what matters most to you. We don't just report the news. We're part of the fabric of the places we serve, from the Mississippi to the Illinois, from the Fox all the way to the chain of lakes. Trusted for generations, still earning it every day. Shaw Media, your most trusted local source.
Back here on the Friday Night Drive, Western Suburbs podcast. And Joel, as we look ahead to week 5, I mean, one of the games of the year, always in our neck of the woods, certainly Duquesne Conference, Batavia and St. Charles North, never seems to disappoint. I don't expect it will this Friday either. Batavia, they lost that week 1 game in Glenbard West, and it's kind of like, oh, what's wrong with Batavia? Maybe they're not quite what they were, and they just have quietly been stacking up wins ever since. And St. Charles North, they haven't lost yet. They look to have a really good defense, pretty good running game. The quarterback seems to be playing well. And Batavia on the other side, we know about Michael Vander, Lewitt Guerin, but man, they got that running game really humming with those 2 running backs. What do you make of that game that you're going to be at Friday?
I mean, I just think it's going to be a really good game once again. I mean, you kind of mentioned it. They're 2 running back. I mean, they have basically a dual-wield sword at this point between Henry Hahn and Preston Brummel. I mean, I knew Brummel heading into this season a bit. I know he's, he had been, a focal point. It's like, oh, yeah, he's going to be one of our fullbacks. You don't hear about that a whole lot in high school football, but he's been doing a lot of, trucking and stuff like that. And then Henry Hahn was projected to be the number 2 running back for them heading into this season, but he's been playing a whole lot like a number 1. And it's been really interesting to see the 2 of those kind of lead the offense this season for Batavia. And then, of course, on the other side, St. Charles North, I mean, you kind of mentioned it, they've got a pretty much a full force offense as well. JT Padron has come in and done really well for them in quarterback. He's been slinging the ball really well to Keaton Ranke, of course, Northwestern commit there. And then at running back, they have Carson Durante, who's rattled off, I believe, 3 straight 100-yard rushing games. So, both of those offenses are running pretty much at full force. And, it's to be like 2 trains coming against each other in this game, and only one of them can come out undefeated in Duquesne Conference play. So I'm going to be interested to see which one comes out on top of that.
Yeah, St. Charles North is one of the, let's just say, dwindling amount of unbeaten teams in the state, and certainly in the larger class. I know Seuss has wrote about it this week. It was 110 unbeaten teams going into week 4, and that almost pretty much got chopped in half last week, and there's even fewer in classes 5A to 8A. So we'll see what happens if North can keep it going. Game that I'm going to be on Friday, a couple teams that are still unbeaten, 4-0. Yorkville is playing out of Oswego. Actually, there's 3 teams in the Southwest Prairie West that are undefeated. Oswego East as well. It's the only conference in the state that has 3 4-0 teams. So good start for those teams. But that is a matchup that, you've seen Oswego against Geneva. I don't think that I'm shocked that they're 4-0, but the way they've been beating teams has been pretty impressive. I think that's what surprised their coach, Brian Cooney, is just the way they've been these one-sided wins that they've had. Their defense has been great. Their secondary, I mean, you saw it. Mariano Velasco has been great for them. They have a great defensive backfield. The quarterback, Drew Kleinhans, has been, really good. They have a lot of running backs. Teddy Manicus is one of the better, maybe quietly one of the better wide receivers around. And on the Yorkville side, their defense just continues to keep them in games. They have a couple of good running backs, and they have a pretty good quarterback as well, Jack Beetham, the senior. And it's really a good matchup. I mean, since Yorkville joined that conference about 6 years ago, it's been a really kind of back and forth matchup. I mean, Yorkville's beaten them a couple times. Oswego's beaten them a couple times. I mean, I would think that Oswego is the favorite in this game. They're the defending conference champions. It's at their place. But Yorkville, they kind of like playing that people doubt us type of mentality. I think they like being that we're doubted type. So I'm expecting a very good game for them Friday, but they really do. I mean, I remember a few years ago, I think Seuss picked Yorkville to go 2-7, and they actually made up T-shirts with 2-7. So they really like they like it when they're doubted. So should be a lot of fun Friday. Yorkville playing Oswego. And then another 4-0 matchup, the team that you just saw, Kaneland, playing Morris. Kaneland, we'll see if they can break into the top of the pecking order in the Interstate 8. Morris, Sycamore, and Rochelle have sort of been the top dogs the last few years.
Yeah, and I mean, last year, Kaneland entered this matchup once again 4-0, and Morris took them, and it was just like, hey, this is where we're at. This is where you're at. They beat them 50-10 at their place, and it was just kind of like a wake-up call for Kaneland there. I'm expecting it to be a little bit more interesting this time around. I mean, obviously, we talked about it. Kaneland's offense is running very well through four games right now. I think the big thing, though, is going to be how healthy is Carter Gabrowski going to be in that game. He did go down with a left leg injury in that game against Ottawa. I'm not sure how serious it was, but I talked to Coach Michael Thorgerson afterwards. He's like, if he's healthy enough to play, he's going to play. That's just the kid he is. So, it's going to be interesting to see if he plays or not, because I think that's a huge indicator of how that game is going to play out if he's healthy or not. So either way, it should be a really interesting game for both teams.
Yeah, just the next few weeks with Kaneland's going to really tell us a lot to see if they've really, kind of broken into the top of that conference. They're obviously off to a great start. Another matchup that we're keeping our eye on this weekend, it's actually on Saturday. Lions is playing at Glenbard West. That was a game that I recall last year. Lions beat Glenbard West. That was a game that dropped Glenbard West to an 0-4 start and pretty much kind of, I mean, it was going to be an uphill climb the rest of the way after that. And it was a big win for Lions at the time. It was the first time Lions had beaten them in their place since 2007. I remember they were just so fired up after that game. They were taking team photos and stuff. I mean, it was a big moment for that Lions program. But now they have to go to Glenbard West. We'll see. I think Lions, they lost that game to Hinsdale Central last week. I kind of feel like reading the story from Chris Casey that Lions kind of felt like they let that one get away against Hinsdale. They were leading most of the game. They lost the lead late. They lost a really close game. But now, the way that conference is, I mean, no time to feel sorry for yourself because now you go to Glenbard West. So, again, this will be another matchup that really shapes that West Suburban Silver race.
Yeah, and I mean, this is going to have a very different feel compared to last year. I mean, of course, like heading into that game last year, Glenbard West was desperate for a win, and Lions was like, hey, if we beat you, this is a big moment for us. This time around, Lions is going to be looking for, the win as like a bounce back. Meanwhile, Glenbard West wants to make a statement, get to 5-0 after, starting last season 0-4. I mean, this is going to be a really big game for both of these programs and, might be an indicator of, where they'll possibly stand once playoff seedings come around.
Yeah, I remember I was at that game again last year where Glenbard West, they were without their top running back, and it really felt like one of those situations where they were kind of bringing a knife to a gunfight. They just didn't feel like they had the horses to win that game. They kept it close, to their credit. They only lost, I think 24-7 was the final, and it was closer than that. But it really didn't feel like it was a game that they were going to win. at any point in the game. They're a different team this year, obviously. And again, similar to last week against Downers Grove North, I think they want to show that they're back, and what better place to do it than their home field, Deshaun Field. But should be a very good game on Saturday with Lions going to Glenbard West. What are some of the other matchups you're kind of keeping an eye on that you'll be scoreboard watching on Friday?
I think for me, I mean, kind of looking at the Duquesne Conference, I kind of want to see, some of those teams that are kind of, at the middle echelon right now, see if who's going to be making that jump up. And one of them is Geneva. That's a team that we haven't talked about this week. And they're coming off a pretty good win against Wheaton Warrenville South last week. I mean, they beat them 28-7. Of course, I was unsure of how their offense would produce, but apparently going home is a good thing. Ben Peterson scored 3 touchdowns last week and seemed like he was throwing all over the place. And then I think if they can get a victory against Lake Park, who is 2-2 as well, it's a good confidence booster for them, especially heading into rivalry week in week 6. And, it's going to be interesting to see if they can do what they've done the past couple of weeks. And that's create some very lengthy drives. That's one thing that I've been surprised to see with this team. Against St. Charles North, they opened up the game with a 7-minute drive. And then last week against Wheaton Warrenville South, they had a drive last, I believe, almost 12 minutes. That's a full quarter where they had a football. Mm-hmm. And if they continue to do that, even against teams like Lake Park, who are, middle echelon of the Duquesne Conference, that's going to make them extremely scary heading into that rivalry matchup against Batavia next week. And so I'm going to be really interested to see what they do against them.
Yeah, so there's 3 games that I'm kind of keeping an eye on Friday. I'll start with the one with the school that's pretty close to where I live, Oswego East. They're 4-0. I mentioned previously in a podcast. But what I'm going to be honest, they've not played a murderer's row so far in the schedule. The 4 teams they played are combined 4-12. They go to Bolingbrook this week. Bolingbrook is not, I wouldn't say they're a powerhouse, but they got a lot of talent. They have a lot of speed. It's on the road. So that could be a tricky matchup for Oswego East. If they can get that one to go 5-0, obviously it puts them in a position where they're back in the playoffs. But it really sets them up nicely for the last 4 weeks of the season. So tough game for them this week. I think we're going to learn a lot more about Oswego East after this game on Friday at Bolingbrook. And then back in the CCL, I'll start with St. Francis and Providence. I know we didn't talk about it previously in the podcast, but St. Francis had a nice win last week, going on the road against St. Rita. But again, the way that conference is like, congratulations, enjoy this for about 24 hours. Because now you're going to Providence this Friday. Providence is 3-1 as well. So, yeah, another tough road game for St. Francis in that, as they continue to try to stack as many wins as possible, try to get to that 5-win level. And then finally in the Catholic League, Nazareth going to Joliet Catholic. I know Joliet Catholic is 1-3. I know the record doesn't look very good. But I think Nazareth probably knows as well as any program that you cannot look at a team's record because, they've had situations the last couple of years where they started the season, their record didn't look very good, and next thing you know, they're celebrating with a state championship at the end of the day. And again, these are 2 programs, they know each other quite well. They played each other for the state title the last 2 years. There's a lot going on there. So, that's definitely going to be a matchup that I'm watching because I know Naz is 3-1. I know Joliet Catholic's 1-3. I expect that one to go to the wire.
Oh, for sure. And I know for Joliet Catholic, they're going to be fighting for that victory pretty much with their lives. Because, looking at the rest of their schedule, it's like, where do you get that 5th win as a 1-3 team? And, it's it's either pretty much Nazareth or Mount Carmel. Which one do you have to beat? And at this point, you gotta try your best against Nazareth. So it's gonna be really interesting. I think it's gonna be a fight down to the wire, much like the last state title game.
Yeah. No, they got a couple games coming out Joliet Catholic where I think they should be able to win. But like you said, there's gonna need to be at least one game that looks like a game that I'm not sure if they can win, that they're going to have to get to where they need to go. Yeah, a lot of good stuff coming up on Friday night and Saturday, and a lot of good stuff on Friday Night Drive. Again, tomorrow, Seuss will have will be taping or recording with Mason Schweizer with the Kankakee Area podcast. I already recorded mine with Seuss, looking into week 5, and then Eddie Griffio and JT Petaldy on Thursday will be recording their South and West. Of course, on Friday night, Steve and Matt Rodewald will back in the command center with the live stream that they do. A lot of good stuff coming up. Joe, before we get out of here, any party thoughts?
I mean, we're halfway through the season. It's been pretty fun so far. So hopefully it continues to be that way through the entire second half.
I think we got a good chance of that happening. We're going to get out of here again for Joe Boenitz and Josh Welge. Everybody enjoy a good week and enjoy a good week 5. We'll talk to you later.